So, today is a very special day in cinema, and that is that we are technically in the 100th anniversary of The Phantom of the Opera, the original Lon Chaney movie. Now, I technically speaking, this is when it released in America, so it kind of counts because it released wide release. The test viewings were technically in January, so we're just going to count the wide release. So yes, this is today of September 6th, 2025, is the 100th anniversary of Phantom of the Opera. And I wanted to do this as a video because I wanted to do one talking about Nosferatu for its 100th anniversary, but I missed it. So when I realized, today is the 100th anniversary of Phantom of the Opera, I really want to talk about it. So let's dive into it. Now, really, kind of gauge that for a second. Really gauge the fact that this movie is 100 years old. Really think about that. This movie, which has been admittedly chopped to bits several times over, this movie's been cut to ribbons several times over. And this one, the Kino Labor release, which is I believe a 4K restoration, which is a high restoration. People have I've seen this. This is probably one of the best cuts of the film, but really, going back to what I was saying, really think about that for a second. The fact of the matter is that we have a movie that was once a silent era picture, and now we can watch this online. Which, by the way, this movie's public domain. You have no excuse not to watch it, at least a little bit of it today. Yeah. Does that not blow your mind that, this movie that came out in an era where, pictures were a kind of the new age of technology, and sound wasn't invented, and, it's 1925, and people are still are watching films with an orchestra, and there's no sound. And now here we are in 2025, and we basically have a way to just watch this on our computer or watch it on our phone. Does that not for a second? And also the fact that when you watch this movie, you think to yourself, "Oh my God, they're all dead. Everyone here is dead." It's the same thing of watching Nosferatu or one of the old Universal monster movies. This movie is fantastic. I also really do like that Universal Studios is slowly coming back to this movie. I know for the longest time also that they were basically trying to shy away from it for the Claude Rains movie, because they still have the rights to that. They still own the rights to that. They lost the rights to the Lon Chaney movie in 1950. I think 1950 or 1950, somewhere in the 1950s. Yeah, I definitely know that Universal forgot to renew the public the IP claim, so it went to the public domain way faster than normal, and everyone had their own cut of it. There have been lost versions, there's been restored versions, and again, Universal wanted to stay away from it because for the longest time these days, because they didn't have the rights to it anymore. It was a movie they made, but it was public domain. So for the longest time they did stick with the Claude Rains movie, which that movie's not bad. It's not great either. It just doesn't feel like a Universal monster movie. And I'm not talking just because it's in color, but also the fact of the matter is, the real fact of the matter is that it just feels like a different movie and not a horror movie. I mean, Claude Rains is a really good Phantom, but everything else in here is just kind of This is the true horror story. And I do stress story because this follows the book more than any other adaptation. like how Lon Chaney made himself look like, made himself so disfigured, which that process in of itself was something to behold. I gotta tell you, like putting a dab of bleach in his eye, putting tongs in his lips to curl them up. His depiction of the Phantom's disfigurement and also a little bit of wire to hold his nose up. Yeah, he really fucked his face up for every shoot in this movie. I gotta tell you. So the man wanted to make it book accurate. And what's also interesting to note, what's also really interesting to note is that Rains does most of the work in here. Like, he is putting all the effort in here. There's no like a lot of stunt doubles or things like that. And his performance as the Phantom really carries through. I especially love, and I love that it's one of the surviving in-color moments too, where the Phantom dresses as the Mask of the Red Death and breaks into the masquerade ball and is just so imposing in there. Rains is giving it his not Claude Rains. I mean, Chaney is giving it his all here. I also really do like that, this is a film that you can really study as a straight-up horror film, which, again, has been kind of... which has really been studied as or really lost, I should say, from the other adaptations. And this is coming from someone who does enjoy the musical. But I really do feel like, it's high time we bring back the Phantom as a kind of, scary figure. It wouldn't hurt Robert Eggers. I'm just saying, Eggers, I mean, you did a phenomenal job on another movie that was over 100 years old with Nosferatu, and I think you could do a really cool thing with Phantom. I just think, it's just time to make the Phantom I think it's just time to make the Phantom a more terrifying kind of figure again. If Universal Studios, or really any, because the Phantom is public domain, like I said, the Phantom of the Opera is public domain, so any studio really could just, make their own movie, but I'd like it to be Universal. The other major thing is that this movie is like a time capsule of filmmaking. When Christine takes the mask off and you see the Phantom just you've seen the classic image. That moment is forever kind of etched in time, right? It's all kind of one of the first jump scares ever. I remember watching a thing on Shudder about 100 scariest films of all time, or 100 scariest moments in film of all time, and they bring up this version of Phantom of the Opera, and David Dastmalchian brings up he talks about, I would have killed someone to have a chance to be in the theater when Christine removes the mask. That's how much of an impact, how cool would it have been to see that moment, that first moment when it was revealed in theaters and just the mask comes off. Because I know it doesn't look scary now and some people might find it funny these days, but really, put yourself in the mentality of a person from the 1920s. They were a lot easier to scare back then. A lot of people in that time considered Dracula and Frankenstein the most they had to put a warning out in front of, remember, they always had to put a warning out in front of Frankenstein. So imagine that scare right there. This also, the Phantom of the Opera, speaking of the Universal monsters, the Phantom of the Opera is literally the first monster. I know people are going to say, oh, but what about Quasimodo? I know people consider the Hunchback, but I still have a problem because I'm that goes against everything in the book. It literally goes against everything in the story. So to have that, I do consider the Phantom of the Opera to be the real first Universal monster. Without Chaney's performance as the Phantom, we probably wouldn't have several years later of Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Universal monsters as a whole. And Universal Studios may not have had the same, without those horror films, they may not have been able to generate the power they had that they kind of have now. And yeah, they also it would have been a detriment to horror without those films. So this film is incredibly important, not just to cinema, but like to a single studio in general. That's how I feel. So yeah, let's all just raise a lantern to the Phantom. And yeah, like I said, if you want to go watch it, it's on you. You can find all these different versions on YouTube. You really have no excuse not to go watch it today. Which I'm gonna try to find time to watch it today, whether it be this lovely Blu-ray cut or just go online. So yeah, so there you go, guys. 100 years of Phantom of the Opera. Here's to 100 more. But until then, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in Multiverse.